Thank you.
Barbara, do you have a question for Rich Green?
Am I ever gonna get asked Cindy anything?
I don't know.
Because I got a couple here with your name on it.
Ask me later.
Okay. Rich. I'm into money tonight, Rich.
Okay.
City Manager Andy Barton announced last week that the city stands to receive $1 million less in C-tax, consolidated tax, next year from the state. C-tax makes up about 48% of our budget. What areas of the budget do you propose to cut? Or how do you propose to make up the difference? And please be specific.
Thanks, Barb. Yeah, I was there at that meeting. I think when Andy mentioned that it was going to be a real struggle. He didn't have any answers, obviously, at that early stage. But I would think that we might want to use some modified version of a zero-based budgeting if necessary. If we're going to be facing a significant shortfall, as it sounds like we are, on the revenue line, then we've got to see, we've either got to use reserves or we've got to pull in our belt on expenses. So the first thing would be to look at the expenses and look at the various functions that drive those expenses. And rather than say it was this much last year, so let's hold it to a 2% increase, that sounds good, but let's go back and see was last year necessary. That's what zero base is all about, to go back into the details of the expense and say, do we need this expense at all? Not just that we need to mitigate the increase from one year to the next. So I haven't been a part of the city's budget process in the past, and as I said earlier, I'm going to be very active to the extent that a public person can from the viewpoint that perhaps in some areas, zero-based budgeting could be utilized to offset some of that shortfall in revenue. And to a certain extent, we may have to well go into the surplus. But remember that Mayor Ware told us that we're one of the strongest financial cities of our size in the entire state. So it's not a matter if we have a shortfall of revenue in 1 year that we've got to yank out the kitchen sink there necessarily. We may have to use some of those reserves. So again, I think this budget hearings that are coming up are super important.
Bring a sleeping bag.
Bob, do you have a question for Sandra?
Thank you. Sandra, when acting as a volunteer for any organization in Mesquite, including the Chamber of Commerce, have you ever withheld the services of the organization to anyone seeking assistance from or involvement with that organization merely because you dislike them as a person or were intimidated by them? In other words, how often have you allowed your personal feelings and emotions to color your decision-making regarding a person or an activity in the execution of your duties?
Well, one of the first things I did when I arrived in Mesquite was become a volunteer at the Chamber. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was to learn more about Mesquite. And I thought that was a great starting place for me, and I think it's still a great place. I don't believe I have ever turned anybody away or told them that they shouldn't be a part of the Chamber or of this city. I've tried to always give positive feed in whatever direction they happen to ask me about. And probably one of the first things out of my mouth is, gee, I retired here 4.5 years ago and that's the best thing I ever did. Where are you planning on coming from? Or why are you here? What do you have in mind? And I try to always be positive with them. I can't think of a time that I've actually, or even hinted at turning somebody away.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Kent, do you have a question? I'm going to put this one back. Sorry, I had the prerogative for that. Sorry. Kent, would you like to ask a question to Cindy Delaney? Sorry, Barb.
I'm coming for you.
Cindy,
The smoke-free Mesquite effort is
now the Mesquite Citizens for Clean Indoor Air. Should the city council elect pass tougher anti-smoking requirements than those imposed by the state of Nevada? And should such issues go to a vote of the people?
Would you repeat the first part of that question?
Just the smoke-free Mesquite area now is known as the Citizens for Indoor Air.
Uh-huh.
And should the city enact tougher indoor air requirements for anti-smoking than the state has? And, or should such things be left to a vote of the people or not touched at all?
Okay, now I understood you. I thought you had something completely different. No, I don't think that the city of Mesquite should enact tougher laws than the state already has. I think that because we're a gaming community and because people go to bars, and when you go to a bar, you know that there's going to be smoke in there. You have a choice whether or not to go in. And I don't smoke and I don't like cigarette smoke, but I don't believe I can tell other people whether or not they can smoke. I do believe that if we put it to a vote of the people of Mesquite and they all said, well, we don't want it to be a smoke-free Mesquite, I would support that because that would be the voice of the people. I think that, you know, we've had quite a bit of activity that people have said that I don't remember the percentages or the numbers of people that have signed the petition. But if we want to put it to a vote, let's put it to a vote and we'll see what people say. But no, I don't support it because I think that as you look around the country, they've tried to do that in other gaming communities. Now I realize that places like Utah and California have clean indoor air acts, but I think even in California you can smoke in a casino. You can't in a restaurant, I appreciate that, but you know what? They've looked at it and revenue actually does go down. And you know, I'm not sure whether or not the Eureka did it. I know that the Oasis at one time had a whole upstairs that was smoke-free. Nobody went there. So it's been available, but nobody went there. And so I think that our business owners would strongly, you know, the people that are in that business, because really this is targeting mostly bars and casinos. It's not targeting the grocery store or Walmart. We can't smoke there anyway. It's targeting bars and casinos. And I think it would hurt their business. And so I think that you would find a huge lobby against it if we put it to a vote. And like I said before, I think if they want to put it to a vote, then they should get it on the ballot and let's see what people say.
Barb, do you have a question for Rich Green?
May I beg your indulgence, and because I have not asked Cindy a question at all yet. So,
You want to skip your turn and wait and see if we can draw her out next time?
No, I'll ask Rich.
Okay.
A proposal to designate Gold Butte as an NCA with or without wilderness stands to impact an important water source for the Virgin Valley. How do you propose to protect our water resources in that area, which is 2,300 acre feet a year, if parts of it are off limits to motorized and or mechanized equipment depending on the designation?
I'm not fully aware how that affects our water resources. I do believe that we could have Gold Butte designated as an NCA with the wilderness area and find a way to see compromise on things like water, and we still have our trails available for the motorized vehicles. We just have our wilderness area where we couldn't have any motorized vehicles. And how that directly affects the water, I'm afraid I can't answer that at this point.